excuse me. Hello, I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer. Excuse me. And this is episode 28 of the Yarn Randomizer, and it is the 13th of July, 2024, and it's in the morning here. I'm trying to get this done so I can kind of free up to do some yard work and some other things later today. But this is a knitting podcast, as it were, and pretty much all knitting all the time. And I wanted to welcome folks who just stumbled across this. I notice a lot of people are watching my Seaming Up an Emotional Support Chicken video, so maybe they're stumbling across me that way. But I'm hoping that's helping lots of folks and everything. But so if you're new here, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Glad to have you back to see kind of what's going on in my little corner of the knitting universe. And I look over that way because I have my big computer here with my notes up on the screen. And so you can find me on, Instagram as original.annasender. And on Ravelry as the Yarn Randomizer, and I have a Gmail address, theyarnrandomizer@gmail.com, and all that information's down below. And also have a physical address so that when I mail things out, there's a return address there, so that's down there as well. And I think, yes, so that's all the contact information, wrapping up the preliminaries. I wanted to grab this real quick and show the reason why I call it the Yarn Randomizer is these represent all the yarns in my stash, and they're all assigned numbers, and I pick, for the most part, projects randomly out of my stash. There's some that are not. In fact, my middle son recently made a request. He wants something knitted, so I have to talk to him about that, but those types of things I go ahead and do anyway, it woven in with everything else. But yeah, so please like and subscribe. That helps other folks find these videos and that kind of thing. So in the meantime, let's get right down to it. I'm ready to go over kind of what I've done over the past couple of weeks. So the main thing is I was hoping to have a finished object and a half object, but I only have the finished object, and I think finished is a relative term here. So I finished the Jimmy Beans Wool Shawl Club for 2024. So it was just over the first 6 months of the year. And it's basically off the needles. So you can see the middle part. It goes from the middle to this. This is one half of it, and you can see lots of ends here. That's the relative part about the finished. But let's see if we can get a good look. Let's get the end in there. So it ended up being really nice. So the construction was you knitted these two triangles here on the top and bottom, and then you picked up stitches along the edges and knit out the two ends. And there was a variety of slip stitches and texture stitches in there, and it used 12 different colors of Hedgehog Fibers Oh So Fine, which is a 100% plied merino yarn, and I'm super happy. And this was the mellow colorway set. There was a bright colorway set. I can't remember the official name of it, but much more, very, very bright colors. But I'm really happy with it. So I had gotten kind of behind at the beginning, but I caught up last month and then finished it off as quick as I could as soon as I got in the yarn. And so the next step is to weave in ends, and there are lots of them. Somebody on the Facebook discussion group said there's like 100 and something ends to weave in on this thing. And then I'll block it out, and they say block it 2 dimensions. Now, when I can stretch it out completely, so it's going to be longer than my arm length when it's done, because it's got some slack in there when I hold it out to my full arm length. So it should have enough, it should be large enough to do a full wrap around the shoulders and stuff, or have it over your shoulders like a regular rectangular stole. And I'm trying to think of anything else I have in there. Oh yes, and I'm supposed to use all of the remaining yarn, and we'll see how that, if I actually use all of it. because there's a chunk of it remaining. There's a little, some colors I only have a little bit of, but like these last few colors I have a lot of it left over. And you make a tassel for each corner of the shawl. And so that'll turn out really nice. So I should have that ready to show off and actually wear it next time. So yeah, that was a fun project. I can't say I'm the biggest fan. I mean, the look is beautiful, but the work of the ends, and my only concern about weaving in the ends here is that we've got the whole edge is, you know, got these yarn overs along the edge, and so weaving in these threads, you know, the yarn over has only 2 threads wrapped around each other, every other, you know, between the holes, and so, you know, am I restricted? Am I going to just weave in along this border? Or am I going to try to cross over into the body of the shawl? I have to think about it. And so I have to decide what the best way to do this is. I think doing it, if you did it again, I would weave in as I went, I think, and see how that went. The other thing I was really pleased with here was that the method for doing the garter tab, if you can see that, I'll duck out of there, worked out so nice. I mean, that looks, you know, other than the thread I have to weave in, you can't tell that that's a separate piece of knitting. It looks like it goes continuously from one end to the other there. And the technique was really nice. They actually used a technique of using, oh my gosh, provisional cast on with some scrap yarn to produce that result, and it turned out really nice. All right, so that's that. And that is off the needles, which I count as done. One of the things we should probably talk about is, and I have it here, is I have my bag full of stuff that is finished, it's done knitting, but needs woven in, and it's been building up on me. So I think I saw somebody who had this idea of doing a weave-in Wednesdays. And I thought that might be a possibility, but I don't know if I could go a whole day with just doing weaving in. And so I thought maybe I'd do something like commit to doing a certain number of weaving in ends, like 10 a day, 20 a day, or something like that, and get those things done with. So I'm going to put some serious thought into doing that. Maybe for the month of August, that might be a fun thing to do. We'll figure it out. But yeah, so that was the Jimmy Beans Wool Shawl Club, and it turned out really nice. And I've done that for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years I've done their shawl club. But now it's just a 6-month where they come out with the yarn twice as fast. So I imagine the next time it's available won't be again until the end of the year for 2025. All right, so the next thing, for anybody who doesn't know, this is my board where I have my hooks and little containers and some of my needles and everything, and it's where I hang project bags when they're waiting for me to pick up and work on. And so the next big project to talk about is my blanket, my Slip Stravaganza blanket, and I'm having to fit it in my humongous and very well loved and worn Woolalooya bag here. It was from Field Fringe Supply, if anybody remembers that company. They're no longer in business, but their patterns for some of their bags, I think, at least the Field bag, is available out there. I should probably try to see if I can find a link for that. But my blanket continues to progress, and it is just getting massive. Okay, so let's see how I can hold this up for you guys. So I am partway. I finished the bubbles section completely. I was almost finished with that last time. So you can see the full bubble section is completed. And now I'm on the checks section, which is using the main color and contrast color 1. And I only have, I think, 4 rows to go in the checks section, and it will be complete. And that'll be done before next time. And I'll be starting these short row triangles around the edge next. So let me put this bag down and see if I can, how well I can hold this up. And so this has really gotten, so I've got at least 3 cables around this thing, and I can't even see what's going on when I hold this up, But yeah, I absolutely love this project. And speaking of weaving in ends, I've got stuff to do here too. But yeah, I really like the check pattern. It's turning out really nice. And it's a very easy pattern to work around. And so it'll be interesting to see when that gets done to see what those triangles are like. So after this section 5, there's just section 6 of triangles. And then the last section is called, let me see if I can find that. It is chevrons. And so there'll be some rows of chevrons, and that'll be the last part. The funny thing is, the last part is going to take August through December to do, because at that point there are, I think if I look down here, yeah, 1600 stitches on every row. And so basically it'll take me at least 3 days for each row for the way I've budgeted my stitches. So for anybody new here, what I did was I made this big spreadsheet, and I have the spreadsheet linked in my project, and the spreadsheet did a full calculation of the total stitches done in the project. And then I divided that over the 366 days available this year. And the idea is, so instead of just trying to rush to complete this, I would just do the 540 stitches a day. I believe it's way back up here now. I can find it. 542 at least, and it's 0.28 stitches, but a day. And that way, at the end of the year, I'll have this blanket complete. And it should be, I think, 86.5 inches in diameter. And it will go onto the bed in the guest bedroom when I'm done. But yeah, so yeah, I am loving this project. And it's done with Lankava Maya Neo yarn. It's a DK yarn from Finland, but it's available through Finished Knits here in the US. And I picked it out because it's got a good price point. I wanted to do a wool, mostly wool blanket. It's 75% wool, 25% nylon. And I wanted it to be a wool blanket, but I didn't want to spend, it takes 16 to 17 skeins of DK, 100 gram balls of DK. You can imagine what the price of that is going to be if you buy 16 skeins at $30 a skein would be massive, unaffordable. And so this was a way to make it an affordable project and still be wool and everything. So I've been really enjoying working with it. It's not your top of the line yarn, but it is a workhorse yarn, and that's working for me for the blanket. All right, now I think next, and if I didn't say this, we're transitioning into WIP, so obviously that's a work in progress. The next one is the Anate, and this is, let me take a look at this. The Slip Stravaganza blanket, if you don't know, is by Stephen West. It is based off of the Slip Stravaganza shawl that he did, I think, for one of his mystery shawl knits. Now, let's see, the Anate, I wanted to make sure I put the person's name in here. It is Sarah Stark. And so I think I'm 1 row away from starting the ribbing on the bottom. So let me try to hold this at least from side to side, or not side to side, but from the top edge all the way to the bottom. And there's the way, and I varied the colors by doing 8 rows of helical knitting as I kind of put those colors together. It's interesting how much this one disappears into that other color down there. And I've got a decent length. Typically for a sweater, I like just a sweater that I'd wear, not as an over sweater, but as just to wear it by itself. I like the length to be about 13 inches, and I think from the underarm, and I think we'll be there. That is definitely at least a foot, and I've got all of the ribbing to do here at the bottom yet. And that ribbing will be a twisted rib, like it is here for the sleeves, but in that color down there. And so the interesting thing about the Anate is it's got this interesting construction see how well I can show this. And so you've got this shoulder here that comes out where you were doing short rows to make these, or increases, was it you were doing basically making this shape using increases at the right spots, and then you make a line going down, again shifting where you're doing those increases, and then another line coming in this way. And so it's got some very detailed, kind of very crisp construction. And so it'll be interesting to see how well that blocks out. You can see those shoulders there. And you can see, I think it almost draws in a little, but I think blocking will kind of ease that out. If you take a look, we'll see. We'll see. And I need to pick up the top and do some ribbing at the top as well. But this has turned out great. I'm so looking forward to being able to wear this. I think this is a nice, it'll be a nice transitional piece to wear as we get into September and everything. So, but I'll be wearing it sooner than that. But yeah, it's been a really enjoyable, it's really, other than the structure elements, it is just a plain knit. It is the interesting thing about it is it's a 24 stitches to 4 inches with fingering, which gives it a kind of a looser fabric feel and stuff, but I think it's turning out really nice. And I think one of the things I did with the variegated section was not only did I helical knit the color transition, but for this variegated section, I also continued to helical knit from the beginning and end of the skein so that I would kind of defeat some, you know, big flashing or pooling and stuff. And I think it did a good job of doing just that. And that was part of the reason why I saved the variegated yarn for the body, because I knew the number of stitches per row would not be changing and I could better control kind of how that yarn was coming together. So yeah, really happy with that. And this will be done before next time, famous last words. But I think it will be. I've been kind of obsessed about finishing this off. The motorcycle sweater is kind of like because of my obsession with this, and also we'll talk about this next, a little bit of a stumbling block on my curio socks. That has had me a little distracted along with other stuff. My dog continuing to recover from his surgery and everything, and other stuff just going on around the house. So that was the Anate by Sarah Stark. Now, the next thing is the Curio Socks by Andrea Mauy. Now, I had some leftover fingering and I combined that with some sport weight yarn to make the Curio Socks. And the sport weight yarn was an interesting skein because it basically had 2 colors in it. It didn't vary in a gradient kind of way through the entire skein. There's a little bit of a difference there in the middle, but mainly it was this purple and this green. And that was fine. And somebody had an idea of using that purple for the toes and the cuffs and such, and I did start that. So there's the toe, here is the basically the sock for the length I'm going to make it, and it has got these things in here for an quote-unquote, I guess it would be a forethought heel, not an afterthought heel, since you put it in there deliberately. But it's interesting because Andrea Mauy has you put safety, lifelines in the row below and above the knitted row that has the waste yarn to hold the stitches for making the heel. Let's see if I can bring that up there. How visible is that? But so I did that. I did about 50 rows after that and got this result. And it looks a little wonky, I think, because of the slip stitches and how they pull on the sides. But I'm really happy with it. When I put it on my foot, it fits great. You know, other than it doesn't have a heel yet. But so one of the things I was worried about was how much of this do I have enough of this purple to do cuffs, full cuffs, and heels. And so as I got up to the cuff on this one, I decided I would make the toe on the next one, which I did. And it ended up that I had more than enough to do cuffs and heels based on weight. Let's see, did I write that in the project? Let's see, no, maybe not. I've got some notes somewhere, but basically for the amount I'd used up and for the amount the additional toe used up, I've definitely got enough to make the cuffs and I believe the heels with this. But, and I'm getting ahead of myself. And obviously I have enough, because it was a full ball of sport weight, I've got enough to do the main part of the second sock. But to my surprise, I only have this much, this is 18 grams of the Anzula Nebula in here left. And I'm like, is this enough? And I know I definitely started with more than, let's see, how much? I had 169 yards in my stash, which was about 48 grams. So if I'm down to 18 from 48, I don't think I have enough to finish the second sock with. So so what do I do next? Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this part of the foot and see how far this gets me. And then maybe these will end up being shorty socks. I don't know. I did look around and I found a store I looked to see if anybody had any leftover Anzula Nebula in their stashes on Ravelry, and there was nobody who had this colorway. This is the Au Naturel for sale. I did find a store that has it in stock, so I could buy a whole skein, but I'm very reluctant to do that. I could look to see if I've got another yarn in my stash that I could sub with, have in the last part of the sock. But we'll see how far this gets me, and then we'll go from there. And I'm trying to figure out how I did this miscalculation as far as how much yarn I needed of the fingering yarn. And I looked back at the pattern. It looks like I needed about 100 more yards than what I had. And how I misread that, I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have to relook at it, because when I look at the written pattern, it's clear I don't have enough, but I know when I looked before I purchased the pattern, I thought I did between these two yarns. So we shall see. So they may end up being shorties. I may find another yarn to kind of finish up the top of the second, so they'll be not identical socks, but good enough. And I do like the heftier weight. This sport, using the sport in here makes it feel more like, for anybody who uses Croy sock yarn from Peyton's, that has a more sporty feel, a more sturdier sock. And so this feels like a nice sturdy sock. But we'll see. So that's where we go from here. How far is this going to go? I didn't think I was going to be in this kind of yarn chicken game with these socks, but I am. So unfortunate, but yeah, I should have taken, was it what they say, measure twice and cut once? Should have thought about it, how this was all going to come together a second time. All right. Now, I did start a new project. Since my sweater is winding down to completion, I decided to throw another sweater onto the needles. And for anybody, listen, I got a lot of sweaters in my queue right now because this year my random picks have been picking a lot of sweater quantities, which is unusual. I feel like it usually isn't this many. And so I have right now in my queue, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 other sweaters in my queue right now. And I started this one, got this one off my queue this week. So now this next object, and all of these randomizer projects do have this is randomizer project number 10 from this year. It was from the 10th yarn pick for this year. And this is going to be, I think it's Orlane Suchi is the pattern writer, and it's called Ilha. And so it is a top-down sweater, and I think You can see, so it's got some cable. Let's see if I can get my head out of there. It's got some cables in there and some yarn overs, and it has some short rows. You can see there's additional length in the back and everything. And this will be picked up in, I think, there will be a ribbing up at the top here, but actually, now that I say that, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe not. I may end up doing something up there, but we'll see. So I do not see ribbing at the top. But yeah, it was really nice. The real struggle with this, it's a beautiful sweater, and you know, knit in the round, it's got this detailed top, and then it's got some interesting texture instead of ribbing at the cuffs and at the bottom edge. The real tricky thing was this pattern calls for fingering weight yarn to be worked at 21 stitches to 4 inches. And so to get that, and I did a couple of swatches and I blocked them. And so to get anywhere close to that, I had to use size 8 needles. And I was a little concerned with what this would end up looking like, but the fabric is actually pretty nice. And I was a little paranoid about using this. Now this is a blend of hemp. So I'm trying to think of what the combination is. There's some merino and hemp and silk. So this is a merino, hemp, and silk blend. It's a really nice blend. It's knitting up very lovely, and the main thing is to see how it kind of, I think it'll produce a really nice, almost summery type of sweater. So I'm enjoying knitting it. Bring that up there one more time. And so I'll work on finishing this yoke and get to the body, which will be plain. But yeah, I had to go up to size 8 needles to do this. I am a tight knitter. And that was the only way I could get close to the gauge. And I was paranoid. I thought maybe I'm using this yarn at an inappropriate gauge, but I looked up the yarn details. This is a yarn from Bare Naked Wools, who I highly recommend looking at. They have wonderful yarns that I really love working with. And I looked at their recommended patterns for this yarn, and they had a similar gauge. And so, and I looked at other folks who'd knit with this, and again, it wasn't off base as far as getting this type of fabric out of this yarn. So yeah, I'm excited about this. This one, I want to get it past the yoke here and get to the main part. And we got a loud motorcycle going by. I don't know how well, we'll see. I'll see how well I can hear that when that goes by, but you get those occasionally. I live on it's not a rural route or anything like that, or a state route or anything like it. It's just a segment of a country road that isn't a main connection between places. So most of the time, there's not a whole lot of traffic here, but we do get the occasional noisy vehicle that goes by. But yeah, so I'm really happy with that. I can't wait to see how this continues to knit up, and we'll go from there. All right. So that is all the works in progress. Now, the only thing is some quick little acquisitions. And speaking of Bare Naked Wools, I am a subscriber to their Barn Box, and the Barn Box is a every other month subscription where you get a skein of yarn, and their whole thing is like minimally processed, specific sheep breeds, those kind of things. And I think I'll hold this up so you get, it's a, you get your delicious yarn, you get an email that has coupon codes and pattern info, and they provide a selection of usually about 9 to 12 patterns. You get one of those for free. So you pick out one that you like, you get it for free, and then you can also buy additional yarns at a discount since you subscribe to the box. And then she has a whole Zoom meeting where she goes into the history of the breed of wool and kind of where she sourced the yarn from, the wool from, and everything. A huge amount of effort. It's really great. And the yarn, these minimally processed yarns, almost always knit up so smoothly on the needle. So here's this one for this month. If I spoiled your surprise as a Barn Box subscriber, my apologies. I don't know how many of you out there subscribe to this, but and I tend to get it quick because they're out of Cleveland. I'm here in Columbus, Ohio. But this is 100% border Leicester. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but I'll hold that up there. Let's block the face. And yeah, so 100%, and definitely sheepy, a little sheepy and everything, but this colorway is called Rainbow Gray. And so it looks like they've mixed a bunch of the darker colors together to produce the skein. So this is fingering. Her skeins are 4-ounce skeins, so it's 115 grams, so there's 450 yards here. And so I haven't, sometimes I know right away what I want to do with one of these yarns. This one I'm less sure about, so I have to think about it, and I'll look at the patterns they provide to go with it as well and everything. But that's my one yarn acquisition for the month, is this Barn Box Border Leicester fingering. Very nice. And so that's it. So, stash management. I knew you were waiting for this. No. So, stash management. So I had given myself a mulligan, or given myself a buy month for June, because of the massive amount of wool that I didn't actually select to buy, but got because of the retreat I was at. And otherwise, outside of that, I have a policy of twice as much yardage out to earn yardage to buy in. So I had zeroed out my budget after June, after the inundation of yarn that was June. And so this is 450 yards. So that means I have to get rid of, or I didn't have any used up. My budget was at 0, so I had to de-stash. So I went looking through my stash, and I had to get rid of 900 yards total of yarn. So as I looked around, I found this yarn. I have 2 skeins of it, and it is a mohair. So that gives me 840 yards. And then I found some remainders of some DK that'll get me the 60 remaining yards that I don't have anything I plan to use that for. And so I'm de-stashing all of that, but the de-stashing of the mohair is to your benefit. So the mohair is Impression from Madeline Tosh. And it's 70% mohair, 30% silk, and this colorway is called Modern Fair Isle. So if you are interested in getting your mitts on this yarn, I would like you to write Fair Isle in your comment. So any comment about Fair Isle, and remember, no comments about giveaways and that kind of stuff, because that brings the spammers and scammers out to play. And I will always try to actively, if I haven't seen anything like that crop up yet, but if it comes up, I will delete those types of comments where somebody's trying to scam folks and stuff. I will never message you to send me, that you're a winner or anything like that in YouTube. I'll only do that through the podcast, and then you'll have to get in touch with me by Gmail and stuff. But so if you're really interested in this, it's a lovely color. I had originally bought it to use with another yarn, but then I found another fluffy yarn that I liked better, that I felt the color worked better. And so this will go up for being raffled, kind of figure out who it goes to for the next episode. So comment about Fair Isle and you'll get access to this. All right, now that's stash management. And finally, what this podcast is all about is random yarn picks. So I made my 21st pick of the year, and surprise, it's another sweater quantity. I don't know what's going on with the random numbers this year. I got plenty of single skeins, but it's picking sweater quantities. And so what I have is Kid Silk it picked out of the stash, and the number was, I have it right here, 129. Oh my goodness, my dog is snoring over there. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, it's Kid Silk from Drops, and this is another nice mohair. It's a, I believe it's a 70, what does it say here? I'm gonna end up pulling this out of here. Well, there's an easy way to look this up. Let's go to my stash and type in Drops. And there's that. And it is a 75% mohair, 25% silk. And I've used, you know, I've seen mixed comments about Drops Kid Silk, but I've actually liked it really well. I've used it in multiple sweaters, and I will actually be showing you one here shortly that uses it. But I bought this yarn because I had about 1,000 yards of another yarn that's been sitting in my stash for a long time. And I like the idea of being able to make a sweater out of this yarn. Now, this yarn that I plan to use it with is Jaeger Matchmaker. This is an old yarn. And this is the real driving force behind doing the Yarn Randomizer, was about using these old yarns. I don't have that many really old yarns in my stash anymore because of I've been doing this Yarn Randomizer and doing random picks. So this is Jaeger Matchmaker, and it says superwash. I'm not sure how much you should believe that, because I did make some socks that didn't weather well through the wash in this. But it does say machine washable. Knits is 4-ply. And so this one is pure wool fingering, which is, it's 100% wool. And I thought I could put these two together in order to make another ranunculus. Now, I've made 2 ranunculus sweaters so far. This should give me plenty to do a ranunculus, and I think I'll be able to do the I'll try out the pattern with the traditional sleeves. Now, for those who are skeptical about ranunculus sweaters, I brought my 2 existing ranunculus sweaters here. Let's see which way. Oh yeah, this one goes like this. So this is a little, really kind of, this was one that I made out of 600 yards of sport weight yarn. And this is actually one of my favorite sweaters. It ended up, you can see the texture of the top, and this one I had to combine a couple of skeins that didn't look identical, but I think it worked out looking great. Let's see if I can see through there. But I love this, and what you do is, obviously on the pattern page I show these extremely with extreme amounts of ease, and knit in super thin yarns, you know, with no combinations. But I mean, this ended up, everybody who's seen this sweater loves it when I'm wearing it. They always ask me, you know, what it is. It's a ranunculus. And I got this much sweater out of 600 yards of sport weight yarn, which I thought was great. I think it's just 10 inches down the side there, so it's somewhat cropped, but it looks great. I love it. It's definitely one of my favorite sweaters. And this, it's knit up on size 10 needles. For me, that means using 10.5. And so I knit this one in a week. And then I made it again for my Christmas Eve cast on. And this is the one that uses some of Drops Kid Silk. Yes, this was the one that uses Drops Kid Silk. And again, trying to figure out where my front and back are. Isn't always easy. Oh yeah, there's the back. Yep. Okay, so I knit this out of some yarnable fingering combined with a very bright pink mohair. And I actually wore this sweater for Easter this year. And so it ended up looking absolutely great. And again, you can see the detail of the yoke. And again, it just knits up fast. I joke that knitting this sweater is like knitting a magic trick. I do a tubular cast on the top. I do the smaller neck because I like closer fitting collars. For this one, I did, at the bottom of the sleeves, I did the twisted rib, and I basically made this sweater as big as I could make it with the yarn that I had available, which was 2 skeins of fingering and the mohair. But yeah, again, this one ended up absolutely lovely. And so I highly recommend it, and I will be knitting another ranunculus out of this tan. So this will be a more everyday type of ranunculus out of these tan colors. And that is it. So that is everything covered. Let's see how long, 40 minutes, so that's not too bad. And so again, I would like you to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this at all. And that helps get it more exposure and everything. I'm up to like 750 subscribers, which is just amazing. I think I have some special plans if I make it to 1,000, and we'll see. Maybe a special giveaway of that yarn that I'm not putting in my stash that I got from the Jimmy Beans wool, and that there would be a good chunk of that, but we'll figure it out. But I will do something special, and we'll figure out what the next steps are as far as this podcast. If I get up to 1,000, or when. I guess it's a question of when, perhaps. But otherwise, I hope you're enjoying where you are and what's going on, and I hope things are going as well for you as possible. I hope you're experiencing kindness from the folks in your life, and also giving folks that kindness back and everything, and taking care of yourself. Otherwise, please enjoy your knits.